Now, did you try and fake the furlough scheme or bilk, that's an American expression, C-bills, in other words, cheat it? Well, be aware, be very aware. HMRC, Her Majesty's Revenue and Custom, otherwise known as the taxman or woman, 12,000 investigations or interventions into use of coronavirus support schemes. Research by the law firm BLM, and you'll hear from a senior representative in just a moment, have looked into this and the various schemes, including the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, SICE or SICE, and Eat Out to Help Out. Do you remember that one? Details now from Iskander Fernandez, who's a partner and white-collar crime specialist at the legal firm BLM. They've carried out the research, joins me now. Can we start off by saying, just remind my listeners the various schemes that were, have been, or are still on offer? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Nick. There were a number of schemes that were on offer at the time when the pandemic hit the country last March. One of the most talked about is the furlough scheme, which many employers applied for because at the time nobody knew exactly what their financial position would be, given that trading had shut down and the country, indeed globally, we were all under lockdown. You had that. You also had, as you've just mentioned, the Eat Out to Help Out scheme with the government attempting to kickstart the economy by allowing people to go out into restaurants and dine out, but taking into account discounts that were being afforded by various establishments. So it was these two primarily that HMRC have been looking into and that have been talked about quite widely over the recent months.
The research that you've done at BLM, the figures are huge, I have to say. £18 billion pounds paid out under the furlough scheme, 24.5 under the self-employed scheme. Do we have any sense of what percentage might have been illegally claimed?
We don't have the exact figures at this stage, but from what HMRC have said, they're looking into a handful of investigations which they believe have crossed the threshold into the criminal sphere. How that's going to play out in the next couple of months, we don't know, but it's likely that there are going to be a number of arrests and a number of criminal investigations being carried out by the revenue to ascertain what these applications were about, whether they were dishonest in their nature, or whether mistakes were generally made by companies who didn't quite understand how to approach these applications at the time of their making. But it's clear that there will be arrests, and it's clear that there are likely to be proceedings undertaken in the criminal courts in the next, I'd say, 6 to 12 months.
Do you think in some instances it could have been a genuine mistake by companies or some individuals, Mr. Fernandez?
There is that suggestion. Companies
you're
may
the
well
expert
have
in the field. What do you think? You'll have studied it far more closely than I.
Yes, they're likely to have been genuine mistakes being made by companies because of advice from professional advisors, from accountants and the like. And unfortunately, those companies have fallen foul of the rules. Now, what may well take place in those instances is that HMRC will come in by way of an intervention to ascertain exactly how these applications were made, why they were made, and try and iron out any inconsistencies in the claims that were made at the time. OK,
lastly, someone listening now, whether within a company or individually, and they think, I've always been a little bit worried about the furlough or the SEISS or whatever. What advice as a professional in this field, what would you tell them to do if they've got doubts to possibly stave off a full investigation?
I think the first thing to do is immediately take legal advice. Speak to your legal advisors, find out exactly, ascertain exactly what the issue is or the issues are that you are considering or suspicious of, and have that approach being closely monitored and meticulously picked out by the lawyers to ascertain whether or not the applications were made under mistaken assumptions, or there is some suggestion that the application should never have been made in the first instance, for example, because they may have been dishonest.
Okay. Thanks for all the background and the work that you and your colleagues have done. Iskander Fernandez is partner and white-collar crime specialist at the law firm BLM. That's Bravo Lima Mike BLM, if you're interested in that.